I barely have internet here, but I was able to get a weather update. They're predicting a high of 75 today. 8 o'clock and I'm just packing up. My friend over there just left. I'm not sure if he was homeless or a bike packer or some combination of the two, like Jen and I. But there was some odd incident last night that it may have been completely innocent, but it at least set off my warning bells. It seemed like he was scouting my tent when he thought I wasn't in there. It was enough that I was a little bit nervous about going into the bathroom and having my pack not, right at hand. Better safe than sorry out here. Jen would have also been livid. He spent, I don't know, it seemed like over an hour very, very loudly breaking branches around here. So one of the things along this trail is they generally do not have trash cans. They have these signs saying, please take your trash. That gentleman last night, in addition to basically starting a bonfire over the fire pit, left a bunch of trash in said fire pit this morning. I was actually talking to somebody a couple of days ago, and one of the common questions I get is, safety on the trail. A lot of people want to know if I'm carrying a gun or other sort of weapon. Funnily enough, the number one, number two ways seemingly to start online drama around through hiking is to ask about either carrying your gun or bringing your dog along on a through hike. So at this point, I have been doing this, 4 or 5 years, and I have hiked all across the country, stayed in all sorts of areas. I tend to always tell people how a lot of people are really concerned about animal danger, things like that. I usually say number one danger is dogs, especially in rural areas. People don't take responsibility, and you get people with pit bulls that are not fenced in, and I've had to fight them off for extended periods. Almost gotten hurt, and I do know somebody that got bit in Cuba last year down in New Mexico. Human factor, I have not had that many issues, but I also tend to show a fair amount of caution, just being situationally aware. When you look at things like that machete killing a number of years ago on the AT, or heck, even somebody who was killed by a grizzly bear somewhere in like Montana, Wyoming area a number of years ago, one of the factors that would have probably resulted in them living is when something feels really off, you gotta leave. And it's not a pleasant thing. I mean, I had an incident in the Florida Panhandle where there were some people screaming and trying to tip over a porta potty. Sure seemed like they were on something. I didn't like the vibe. Even though it was after dark, I was in bed, I was about to sleep. I packed up and I moved. It wasn't a secure enough campsite, and it wasn't worth the risk. I also do not like setting up any place where people can see me from vehicles, especially rural roads. There are folks who go out there to drink at the end of rural roads like that, and there are angry drunks. I've had to deal with that in the wilderness class. We had a guy that was perfectly nice all day, and we were hanging around the campfire. He ended up drinking heavily, was drunk before we knew it, oddly enough, got a German accent even though he was Ukrainian, and just about punched one of my staffers. And that was probably what caused that 2x4 to get thrown through that guy's tent on the ECT during the Alabama Road Walk. My preference for campsites is always to be off by myself in the bushes, secure. I feel safer, I feel more comfortable, and for me, being in the tent at the end of the day is one of the highlights of the day. I'm warm, I'm cozy in my sleeping bag. So I really don't like cases like in the Keys where there were no secure camping options, and I had to deal with lights hitting me at 11:30 at night from, people who were also wandering around in the bushes. Now, something like this where I'm on a bike path, I'm less worried. The further you are from easy access, from vehicle access, generally the safer I feel. Anywhere you are around people, I view it as there are potentially more problems versus if you're out by your own. Wild animals are wild animals. You treat them with respect, you do the proper thing as far as protecting your food. I am holding my tongue here, not ranting about how it's unethical to hang food. Can there be incidents? Yes, but keep in mind, every time there's some viral social media clip about a mountain lion or a bear encounter, that is out of however many millions, billions of people are running around in a given year. And I mean, as far as the people issues, quite frankly, I have it easy mode out here. If you are a female hiker, I have enough friends and I've heard enough incidents where I fully understand some of the issues that can arise there. You know, I'm white, middle-aged, hairy, and smelly, so if anything, I'm probably more likely to make somebody else nervous than really get hassled, but it is something that I'm aware of. The funny thing is, it seems like especially newer through hikers seem to equate civilization with safety. I remember early on in the PCT going through Agua Dulce, and some people around me were camping in an alley behind a grocery store there. And this is Agua Dulce. There are camps right before, there are camps right after. You know, I walked through town and I camped in a private spot. Stuff like that seems to have a higher incidence, for lack of a better term. When I was passing through New Mexico last year, there were far out comments from somebody who had been bivvying in an empty field in one of the towns and actually woke up to the local homeless guy trying to rob him with a knife. The grizzly bear encounter I was referring to, you know, that happened in town. I mean, heck, bears in the wild tend to get a whiff of you and take off. You want to get into a bad bear circumstance, it's usually when they have been habituated to human contact. So, you know, you're afraid of being out in the wilderness, so you camp in town or at the outskirts of town in Tahoe and guess where the bears are having a lot of human contact or access to food. So who knows what was going on last night. It's a good example why I tend to look forward to the camps away from all of this. As nice as it is to have low stress options, presumably once I am off into the wilderness of dolly sods, I won't have to worry. But hey, for now, more of the same. If everything goes well, I may be in Hancock tomorrow night. I'm nominally planning to get a hotel there and charge things and upload videos. There's been one bar for a good part of this section. There's also some people that are family members of somebody who came and met us on the Mississippi who live there, who were nice enough to offer to drive me into town to get groceries. Oh. Jen and I have done a little bit of caving, you know, once or twice where we've really been able to go down and spend like 8 hours underground. It's one of those things I would really like to do more of. My knees getting worse after the whole like fall thing kind of put a damper on that and the rock climbing for a while. We've also been in some dinky little ones like pepper sauce, but the reality is if people can access them without restrictions or protections, they tend to get trashed. This is really cool though. Those bugs are actually mosquitoes. It has begun. Interesting. So the cool caves I've done have gates like this with locks, and you have to check out the key so they can make sure nobody gets killed or trashes the cave. And I'm not gonna leave my gear and go too deep, but this is cool. Way less disappointing than that one yesterday. I don't want to completely soak my footwear and I had to leave my stuff outside, but oh, I do love mines and caves. Oh man, this makes me miss caving. And mine exploring, which is slightly more suicidal. There's a water source for you. So that was mentioned on the CNO guide. It doesn't have a waypoint, but it's called Bear Cave, and it's about a half mile from Big Woods. I do love running into friendly day hikers. that was part of the reason with the patch, because when you start saying, oh yeah, my website is like First Church of Damascus, A, they look at you funny, and B, people tend to forget it. I joke that if I really wanted to do this for a living or wanted to be famous on the internet, I really would have picked a different website / channel name. But, you know, it appeals to my sense of existence. Plus, anybody who does kind of get the joke is usually pretty compatible. Personality, you know, sense of humor wise. I was a little worried about this section. There are some notes about how it floods out in heavy rain. Those folks seem to indicate that as late as last Thursday, the water was way up the bank, hence why I'm seeing that wet mud layer left behind. But hopefully I can make it through. I really don't want to have to do what some other hiker out here has been doing and just shortcut all over the place. Especially, you know, come on, you're gonna walk across the country. Isn't this what you're out here for? The roads are just kind of the price you pay to connect to cool areas. But what do I know? Same thing I thought in New Mexico, where everybody was, you know, cutting off 100+ miles and doing road walks and avoiding things like that kind of cool volcanic red line. This trail has spoiled me with good cell access up till now. I've been able to send trail updates and keep pictures of turtles to taters. Ah, well, it does look like the trail's going to get more in line with my usual expectations. You know, 3 or 4 days between food stops, less accessible, at least for a little while. Long way to go. Oh, this is good. For the record, last night I wish I'd just come forward and stayed at one of these. Oh well. Man, people in those falling signs always look like they're having the most fun out here. This is kind of cool. So they couldn't make the towpath through here, or the canal, basically because they didn't want to have to blast through all the rocks. So they put a dam back below, that big one I showed. And this is called Big Slack Water. So the canal dumped out into this, and they just made a path beside the navigable water. Reminds me of some of the pools on the Mississippi, which, for the record, were some of the worst parts of the Mississippi because you get no current and you have to fight the wind and everything. But at least we met really cool folks like those Pool 19 party people. There's something kind of cool about that stage where people were kind of engineering and fighting past seemingly endless wilderness and natural challenges. And since Taters isn't here, I shall say it for her. Scumbags. Man, this area is cool. Seriously, that guy skipped the best part of this towpath. I'm also getting to enjoy some post-flood towpath maintenance here. Late breaking. Oh man, so much temptation. Some other time with Blondie. It is really a shame that these pumps have been so bad. I would not complain about easy water access. Especially today. This is the most I've sweated since I started, I think. So this was that side I was talking about last night. I could have technically made it, but that would have made for a long day. And I try to avoid any huge spikes in my mileage and the accompanying issues, which can then slow me down. So today is the 2-week mark of being out here, and I should cross the 250 mile-ish mark, which that means I'm doing pretty good out of the gate. I would always rather be doing a little more. I feel like ever since going through Oregon and parts of Washington on the PCT, where I briefly managed to get consistent 25s going, I've always been kind of chasing that as a goal. But in general, if I'm doing 120 miles a week, that is my good pace. I've gotten higher. I view it as I'm having a bad week if I'm around 100 or below. I wasn't quite sure how to judge this trip, just because, you know, on one hand, it's relatively flat. I should be able to make road walk miles, not rough trail miles. But on the other hand, those rough road walk miles those road walk miles can be kind of rough and punishing on the feet. So trying to do sustained 20 miles a day on pavement is its whole own challenge. When I started my second big through hike, the Key West to Canada thing, I found myself flailing quite a bit. You know, I would be trying to do 23, 25 mile days, would do that for a day or two, cause major issues with my feet, have to slow down, have to take a day off. So I usually say I'm just constantly chasing after consistency out here on trail. It has been interesting watching the shoreline over there. Seems like it's much more private property on that end of the river. Occasionally there's been some nice campgrounds and I've been like, damn, why am I not over there? I keep feeling like water is a gamble. For all I know, that comes off some sewage treatment or agricultural area. I would just, you know, take out of the river and at least dilute my chances of drinking anything too bad, but it has been non-trivial getting access to it. Hey there, guy. Oh, hey, not the midpoint for me, but fair enough. That was something I wasn't anticipating getting passed by. So that is either some cool spring or the outflow of an old mine that they've sealed up, possibly infected with killer chemicals. Well, I was feeling remote. I'm just batting 1,000 today as far as fun conversations with people. There was a lady working out back there, said hi. She asked how far I was going, which is my in that I'm always hoping to hear. And once I explained what I was doing and asked, could I possibly fill up my water bottles, she happily gave me some bottled water. Apparently the whatever well or pump or city water they're using here, it may not be the best to drink. It's neither hot enough nor sparse enough as far as water sources where I feel like I have to use something. So I'm still being a little bit overly picky. I mean, I filled up out of that culvert yesterday, which usually isn't my first choice, but is what it is. And of course, if I ever got really desperate, I can always go off trail. I tend not to like to go up to people's doors and ask, since that can get a hostile reaction sometimes. But I could have gone into a couple of these towns and scraped up some water. And hey, at least I've been able to use my filter. It doesn't feel like a real through hike if it's just all gas station fill-ups. Okay, time to see if I can knock out another 10 miles late-ish in the day. That's cool. First one of these has actually been filled that I've seen. The rest of people have been biking through the lower part. That is just kind of cool. Okay, so 8-ish miles. That town was interesting exercise and people watching. Oh, good thing I'm not staying here. I can hear the music from off here. Somewhere north of 20 miles, and feeling pretty much every mile at this point. Did finally find a place where I could get down to the water and managed to fill my Ceenox. So fill up, and then I was kind of aiming for a campground, but considering how that last one was, I may just try and stealth it. Filled up all the way, 4 liters of water on my back, which should be enough to get through tonight and most, if not all, of tomorrow, particularly if it's raining, which it looks like it is. So, smooth ride into Hancock, theoretically, assuming I can find some place to stay tonight. I'm really getting too paranoid in my old age. Came into what looked like open-ish forest, but maybe public utility. But there's just enough signs of traffic back here and hunting stuff that, crap, I'm thinking I push on. It would really help if the greenery would come in here. Give a little bit of extra coverage. Yeah, too close to a clearing. I have also seen a park ranger and a couple of some sort of wilderness survey crews today, so it's not like there isn't anybody out here doing enforcement. Okay, so the towpath is right over that berm. The next camp is 3 or 4 miles on, and who knows how safe that is considering yesterday. This might actually work. The only problem is I am technically visible from the other side of the river. People could hear me maybe, but yeah, I'm on mud, but it's solid enough. Not quite remote enough to really hit all my comfort buttons, but should be workable. Plus, hey, it's on a public waterway, so maybe. This was all underwater a couple of days ago. I'm still gonna keep kind of quiet and leave relatively early, but home sweet home for the night.